just like when I said things out loud, it popped in. I felt the need to say it, so I initiated it. This one, it just kind of like crept in, and I heard it. That's gonna make me sound like I have schizophrenia. So this is day one of my participation in Dr. Hurlbert's research. I'm going to be wearing a beeper, and then at random times of the day, it's going to beep, and then I have to write down what I was thinking and how I was thinking. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to be interviewed by Dr. Hurlbert and his research assistant, Al Crum, and they're just going to break down each beep and try to figure out how my brain works. So this is just an inside look at what he's been researching for the last 50 years, and I hope you guys enjoy. So I'm going to be using the beeper for the first time today. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm watching Survivor, a show that was very popular in the early 2000s. It's still very good if you don't watch it, alright? We'll see how this goes. I'm going to try to be as transparent as possible, unless it's going to affect future jobs. The beeper hasn't gone off yet, but I have noticed that I've been, like, conscious of it, so like I'm like trying to avoid thoughts that I wouldn't want to talk about on camera. I need to like figure out how to just like live my life normally without realizing that I'm being part of an experiment. It went off. I wasn't really thinking about anything. I was listening to what someone was saying. It was kind of like an emotional part of the show, and I was, I guess, invested in it. I don't know if my thoughts were physical, but I definitely wasn't talking or saying anything or visualizing anything. I was just listening. Sorry this wasn't interesting or anything, but hopefully we get to some more juicy stuff in the future. I am starting to get a headache because every single time I have a thought, I think about how I would explain that thought. So, like, it's just like a constant cycle of having an organic thought and then thinking of how I would verbalize that. And it's giving me a headache, and it's really annoying. And I just want to take a nap. So it just beeped for the second time while I was actually editing the video for this, and I was listening to what I was saying, and I said that I hope I get to some juicy stuff in the future, some juicy thoughts for you guys. This one wasn't juicy either. I was just thinking about how it would make my video better if I had a juicy thought. I hate the word juicy. I don't have an internal monologue as much as I thought I did. I just kind of like felt that. I don't know. I didn't have to like verbalize it in my head. I just knew that the video would be better. It would be more entertaining for you guys if I had a thought that was like dark. So someone was making fire using flint, and I was talking out loud when the beep went off. I was telling my friend that if you scrape off too much of the magnesium on the flint, then it doesn't work anymore. It just popped into my head. It's not like it came into my head verbally. It just like I saw someone like using it too much or something, and then I just said it out loud. I didn't think before I spoke. It just like popped in, and then I said it out loud. So beep 4 just happened while I was still watching Survivor, and an Indian woman was talking, and I was just noticing her accent. I wasn't like, not in like a negative or a positive way. I was just noticing how she was saying certain words, but I was also listening to what she was saying to the point where when she was done talking, I said out loud, that was a good answer, and then it beeped. Finally, we got a fun thought from Ryan. I was watching a Domino's commercial, and it was like a bunch of like real people telling stories about how much they love Domino's, and there's like this little fat kid eating pizza, and in my head I said, your parents should probably stop buying you pizza. And that was like internal monologue, so that was cool. That was the first time that happened. Kind of mean, something I wouldn't say out loud, but it is a thought that went through my head. the final beep went off. I was playing Call of Duty, but I was also thinking about a text message that I just sent like a minute before this happened, and repeated what I said. So I said something like, I was gonna text you or something, except I spelled U-Y-A, like text ya, and I could like visually see the Y-A, and I was just repeating internal monologue. I don't know why I was thinking about it. Maybe I was just trying to figure out how they would interpret it or something. I have no idea. But either way, that's all the beeps for today. So those are my thoughts today. I tried to explain them in much detail as possible. It was kind of difficult at first, but as the beeps went on, I got a little bit better at analyzing. It's kind of difficult because when the beep goes off, it kind of takes you out of the thought. So like you have to like physically pull the beeper out of your pocket and turn it off. So it kind of like pulls you away from like the present. So that was kind of difficult, but I got used to it. And then I'm gonna Skype with Dr. Hurlbert, and he's gonna ask me all these questions. He's gonna interview me, and then he's gonna try to analyze my thoughts. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, then I think number one.
All right, number one. So it was my first one, so I didn't really know what to expect. The beep kind of like caught me off guard. But just to set the scene a little bit, I was watching a TV show. I was watching Survivor, and someone was talking when it was beeping, and I wasn't really thinking. It was kind of like an emotional scene a little bit, so I was more intently focusing on what the person was saying rather than actually like forming my own thought.
And if it's a physical thing, it'd be fine with me if it's a physical thing. I don't want to prejudice one way or the other whether it's a physical thing, but if it's a physical thing, I would like to know what the characteristics of that are, to the extent that you can recall. And if you can't remember that, that's fine too.
To be honest, like when the beeper went off, it like snapped me out of whatever was happening. So like I was like, oh, I gotta turn it off. I wasn't like in the moment immediately after. It kind of like pulled me away. So like the first beep is kind of wasn't that good of an experience for me. I was having to like force myself to like watch the show, and I kept trying to like every time I had an organic thought, I would think about how I would explain that verbally. So like it was just a constant cycle of like having a good thought and then me trying to like think about how I would verbalize that.
I think that I think that's pretty common. I certainly have. I can relate to you on that. Number two.
It wasn't like a verbal thought, but I just knew at that moment, like when I was listening to what I was saying, that if I had like a dark thought or something that was like crazy, the video would be more entertaining to people. Like it wasn't like verbal or anything. It was just like I knew that I felt that, I guess.
And then, you are then playing that back.
Yeah, I was sitting at my computer and I put it like into the editing program and it was playing along, and then it beeped when I said like the line, I wish this thought was juicy or something. Some horrible adjective.
Yeah, I kind of like this juicy adjective. So is that something, this is where I'm unclear, is the juicy thing, is that something you said in the video you made?
I said it in the video. So I was listening to that being said when it beeped, but I was also feeling like I knew that if, like, I was thinking that if I had like a crazy thought, the video would be better, but like I didn't like verbalize it in my brain.
And you've called it a feeling or an idea or something. Is this in the like cognitive realm?
It's difficult to explain a thought for me personally if it's not visual or verbal. So like I don't know how, like, what language to use to explain this. It just popped up and like I didn't have to say it. I just knew it.
Yeah. But it feels right to call it a thought?
I would call it a thought because it's something that it was an opinion that I had, but it wasn't verbalized.
There's no picture, there are no words, but I know I'm thinking if I'd had a juicier thought, this would be a cooler video.
Yeah, like it was just like a snap second that I could translate that into words if I had to, but it's one of those thoughts where like if you look at a water bottle, you don't
Mhm.
like say in your head water bottle. It's just there. You just know
Yeah.
it's a water bottle.
Okay.
This one's probably the hardest one to explain.
Okay. Well, I think you're doing a fantastic job explaining it. So.
Number 3. I was explaining to my friend that if you scrape off too much magnesium from the flint, it doesn't work. So I was in the middle of saying that, and the thought that led to that was just like the same exact thing when I was editing. It wasn't verbal. It was like just like my body knew that I should say this out loud, and I just said it to him. I didn't even think about what I was gonna say. I just knew that I was just gonna say it. So like you know how like you could people say think before you speak, where you like you use internal monologue to maybe like put the words in order of what you're gonna say. I didn't do that. It just popped in my head and then I said it.
So sometimes we use a timeline, and it's sort of like we use our paper as a timeline where this is time marching on, and the beep hits right here,
Yep.
and the beep occurs, and it's beeping, you push the button, and you stop the beep, and then time keeps on marching along like that.
Hmm.
So the moment that we're interested in is this moment here, 1 millisecond just before the beginning of the beep. And is it the case at that particular moment that you are saying something aloud to your
I,
friend?
I was in the middle, like I started talking, and then in the middle of my sentence, it beeped.
And sometimes when people are saying something out loud, those words are just rolling out of their mouth and they're not paying any attention to them. And sometimes they seem like they're sort of engaged in the speaking. Are you engaged in the speaking at this time?
Absolutely not. It was verbal diarrhea, just spewed out as I was watching what was happening on the TV.
And is your experience of speaking these words or of hearing these words? And
Mm.
the way what we sometimes differentiate that is imagine yourself talking into a tape recorder. I could say these things into the tape recorder, and then I could play it back and hear them coming out of the tape recorder. Same words, same voice, same inflection, same whatever, except that one experience is of speaking and the other is of hearing. Or maybe that question doesn't make sense for you.
Yeah, I can't like wrap my head around that. I was just talking and I was hearing my voice come out of my mouth, if that answers your question. Have you ever like stubbed your toe and like swore and it just like the words just came out? Like you didn't like think about swearing, but it just like popped out.
Yeah.
Similar
Sure.
to that.
Probably today I have. Number
Okay.
4.
Alright, still watching the show. I was focusing on her accent, not in like a negative or positive way, just like how she was saying specific words. And I wasn't thinking to myself in like an analyzing way. I was just noting every time she said something, it would like I would note it. But I was also listening to the context of the words she was saying, not just like the inflection on the words, to the
Mhm.
point where like when she was done talking, I said that was a good answer out loud to my friend again, and then it beeped.
So she has just finished speaking,
Just finished
and
speaking.
I have commented that is a good answer,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the beep interrupts.
Yep.
Okay. And so is her accent still present to you, or was it like I was focused on the accent before and now I've moved on to saying that was a good answer and then beep,
So
or is the accent still somehow there?
I was still like sensing the accent the whole time. Like you know how have you ever talked to someone for a while if they have an accent and then eventually it's just like it becomes second nature, you don't even think about it anymore. It was kind of new to me, so I was like noted. I was aware.
Mm-hmm.
Um
And even though technically her voice is no longer, I'm still somehow aware of or sensing or something her accent.
no, not at that point. It was only when she was speaking that I was thinking about the accent. And by
Okay,
thinking,
good.
I mean note it, like just noticing it.
But there is something coming to me, present to me about like my evaluation of her.
Yeah, I'm probably thinking about a whole bunch of different things at once, like how the game works, what you have to say to the people that they're talking to, um, who's listening. It's just like a whole combination of things that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I'm not just like brain dead focusing on one thing at once. It's just like a whole encapsulation of the entire show where everything just adds up, and I'm like, that was a good answer, just based on how everything works in the show.
Yeah. But I'm gathering it's not like I have a direct thought about, well, here are the rules of the game, and then here's what the other guy said, but it's sort of like I am skillfully grokking all of it, and then when she's done speaking, I realize, oh, that was a good answer.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not like I was like mentally adding up all the criteria you need to hit to have a good answer. I just knew it was a good answer based on my experience of watching the show.
Number 5.
Number 5. I think this one is a fun one. Yeah. I was watching a Domino's commercial, and it was like a bunch of boxes, like a Zoom call, and there's like this overweight kid, and he was eating pizza, and he said something about how much he loves pizza, and I said in internal monologue in my head, his parents should probably stop buying him pizza. It's not something I would say out loud, but it is something that popped into my head.
This, I understand, is spoken in your voice?
My voice, yep.
And with any particular inflection?
However, I just said it out loud. Same exact way inside of my head.
So we talked a little bit ago about the distinction between speaking and hearing. Does it seem like you're speaking those words, or do you?
I'm driving that for sure.
Okay, so this is the experience of speaking those words, not of hearing those words played back to me.
It's something I would have said out loud to my friends if they were there, but no one was there, so I just said it in my head to myself.
Okay, and both in your experience at the same time. So I continue to experience the TV commercial while I say this to myself.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to explain something just like for the future because it might happen again.
Okay.
The way I said that, like I can initiate self speech, like internal monologue as what I wrote about. But sometimes it's like louder and more prominent, like I'm forcing myself to do it. And then other times it's like, I don't want to say quieter, but a little less, it doesn't pull me out of certain situations. It's just kind of like going on underneath the scene. This was like very prominent where like I wanted to say it. Like I was going to say it out loud, but no one was there. So I just said it to myself.
So is the prominence a characteristic of this speaking, or is that just, there's going to be some other ones where it's less prominent?
This is like, I guess, not like the norm, but if I wanted to initiate talk to myself, like the example of me looking in the mirror and saying a sentence, if I wanted to do that, it would be at this intensity or like volume. It's so hard to explain this. So sometimes I could be in class paying attention and I'll kind of daydream, and then the things that I say are a little less of me driving and more of it coming out organically without me doing it. I knew I wanted to say this, and I initiated it myself. Whereas sometimes I don't initiate it, but it's still my voice that I hear just a little bit less, I guess, forced.
Gotta go on to speed number 6.
Okay, this one was also a more interesting one to me. So I was in the middle of playing a video game, so I was focusing on that, but it was almost like autopilot when the beep went off. So like I was still able to play the game, but I wasn't exactly as focused on it as I could be. Just like when you drive home and it's just like, you're driving, but you're thinking about other things, just like that.
Yeah.
And what I was thinking about was I just sent a text message, maybe like 30 seconds to a minute prior to the beep. And I visually saw one of the words that I said. So I said, I was going to text ya, but instead of saying you, I typed out ya, like Y-A. And like I was visually seeing the Y-A, but I was also saying the sentence like out loud, not out loud, in my head.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So does it seem like there are sort of 3 things going on here? Mm-hmm. The game, saying I'm going to text you, and seeing the ya?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of like I could just see the word yeah, and all the other words are just kind of like blurry out of picture. So it's just the yeah. For some reason, that word stood out to me, and I
Mhm.
think I was saying it almost like trying to figure out how the person that I sent it to would interpret it.
Okay.
So I think I was just saying it like, how would they read it? Maybe that's how I analyze that, because it was one of those daydreams where it just kind of popped in and I wasn't controlling. I didn't initiate that speech.
Okay. Well, and sometimes people can say, like in terms of like your mental energy, kind of your mental powers, like we said before, some people will say, well, yes, those things are all going on simultaneously, but it's the image that kind of dominates. It's like 70% of that experience at the moment. Or sometimes people say, oh, they're all kind of equally present, they're all there.
I think it was equally present. I could see how something could be more dominant just based on my own personal experience. But at that time, they all seemed to just like have their own place
Okay.
in my head.
Okay. Are these words are the words I'm gonna text you?
Yeah, I was saying it like it was inner speech.
Okay. And in the same way as in the previous beep, your voice.
No, um, it's the same voice,
Hmm.
but it's a little bit less of the main, like you said, like the 70-30%. This was 33% when the last one was 80%.
Okay.
So it's like that's why I say like it's quieter. It's hard using audio terms because it's not actually present. Like it's not actual sound, but like it's quieter. I wasn't controlling it, where the other one I initiated that speech.
Okay. So in this beep number 6, I am not the initiator of the speech. For whatever reason, I'm saying to myself, I'm gonna text you.
Yeah, I think maybe the YA, like the visual, popped into my head, and then I said it from seeing that.
Can you make the distinction between, well, I'm speaking them innerly, I'm innerly speaking them, or I am innerly hearing them? Does that
I'm
distinction
I,
make sense?
I think I was innerly hearing it. So the beat 5, I just like when I said things out loud, it popped in. I felt the need to say it, so I initiated it. This one, it just kind of like crept in, and I heard it.
Okay.
That's gonna make me sound like I have schizophrenia. Oh my
No,
god.
you're in a very common company there.
Okay.
Lots of people have that
Oh,
experience.
jeez. I Let me just say quick that those two experiences are very common and happen to me all the time. So whether me initiating the speech or it comes in, it's still speech that is going on um often. Where like the first two beeps, they weren't speech related. It was just like I wasn't thinking or initiating or anything. It was more of a feeling. Where these, like the last three, were more of like language based. I also think it's important to note, just for like my personal research on this as we're doing this, that this just like the setting that I was in while I was doing the experiment. So I was studying for 20 hours straight, and then I took a test that morning, and then I was also taking Adderall as well. So I don't know if that affects everything, but I would be interested in trying to do it in different settings or different times of the day to see how what different type of experiences I have.
Thank you very much. This was great as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. I'm looking forward to continuing it.
All right, have a good one.
Same.
Thanks. See you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.